You might think that modern marine biology has already drawn a complete picture of life's evolution, but that belief is about to be completely shaken by an official military report from the early days of the United States. Its contents would overturn everything. The person who submitted the report was Edward Preble, later revered as the father of the US Navy. Edward Preble, with the precision of a military officer, he recorded a marine creature over 30 meters long, with a massive head, and capable of easily outpacing fully armed boats at full speed. And this was only the beginning. 38 years later, in Gloucester Harbor, Massachusetts, hundreds of citizens, including seasoned fishermen and retired generals, witnessed the exact same creature. They all, without prior discussion, described a movement pattern that does not exist in modern biology: a vertical, caterpillar-like undulating motion. At the time, the most authoritative New England Linnean Society attempted to explain it as a deformed black snake, but ended up becoming a laughingstock in scientific history. An indisputable record from a naval hero, hundreds of highly consistent eyewitness accounts, and a type of motion that defies all known physical laws. Today, we will trace the creature named Cassie, exploring its biology and examining why this ocean giant should not exist, and whether it was merely a collective human illusion or a real species hidden within the blind spots of science. A species that truly exists.
In the summer of 1817, the story reached its true climax. The location was one of New England's busiest fishing ports, Gloucester, Massachusetts. Everything began on an ordinary August day, when a captain in the local auction house told the crowd that at the harbor he had seen a giant sea serpent, 60 feet long. He was met only with merciless laughter. But days later, the laughter vanished, replaced instead by a frenzy mixed with excitement and fear, because those stepping forward to swear that they had seen it with their own eyes were no longer just one or two people, but hundreds of residents. They ranged from experienced fishermen to housewives, retired generals, and even the town sheriff. A captain named Solomon Allen III provided an especially weighty testimony. He described the creature's head as rattlesnake-like, but as large as a horse's head. He clearly saw that its body was not a single smooth form, but composed of up to 50 bead-like protrusions. Another witness, Matthew Gaffney, recreated for us one of the most cinematic confrontations. He was rowing a small boat at the time, less than 30 feet away from the creature, about 9 meters. As a hunter, his first instinct was to raise his rifle and aim straight at the creature's head before firing decisively. The bullet hit its mark precisely, but the result was unbelievable. The massive creature showed no reaction. It merely glanced calmly at the small boat, then slowly dove underwater, resurfacing farther away, and swam off, completely unscathed. To it, a lead bullet was like a mosquito bite. This single shot ignited all of New England. Boston's newspapers began running front-page stories about the giant sea serpent. The news sparked a frenzy. Tourists from everywhere packed the ferries heading to Gloucester. Speculators even set up a massive tent in Boston ahead of time, just waiting for the creature's corpse to be delivered for public display and ticket sales. At that time, how intense did this frenzy get? David Humphreys, aide to U.S. President George Washington, General David Humphreys wrote in his records, "Once, under the windmill in Gloucester Harbor, as many as 200 people witnessed the creature at the same time. It played in the sea all afternoon. Almost everyone mentioned one point: its way of moving. It neither swayed like a fish, nor flapped its tail like a whale or dolphin, but moved like a gigantic caterpillar, with its body undulating vertically, propelling its massive body forward at high speed." Faced with the entire Gloucester Harbor, the eyewitness reports were boiling. At that time, New England's top scientific institution, the New England Linnean Society in Boston, decided to formally intervene. At that time, this society gathered professors from Harvard University and the region's most outstanding naturalists. They organized a special committee and solemnly went to Gloucester. Their only goal was to verify this mysterious creature. The committee worked rigorously and systematically. They extensively collected sworn statements from eyewitnesses. At that time, sworn statements carried legal weight. Providing false testimony was a serious crime. These statements repeatedly described a common image: a giant, sea serpent-like creature with a raised back. However, the investigation stalled, because although the creature appeared frequently, it could never be captured. Then, in October 1817, a dramatic turning point appeared. Two little boys on the beach discovered the corpse of a strange black snake. The snake was about 3 feet long. Most strikingly, its back had a series of distinct mounds, like small hills. This feature perfectly matched the bead-like body described by the eyewitnesses. This discovery made the Linnaean Society members ecstatic. They hardly hesitated and unilaterally concluded that this was the juvenile of the giant sea serpent. A perfect evidence chain seemed to form. In a 53-page formal report, the Society solemnly announced the discovery of a new species. They gave it a striking Latin name, Scoliophis atlanticus, meaning the Atlantic dragon beetle snake. The report was quickly distributed to scientific institutions across the US and even Europe. For a time, the Gloucester sea serpent seemed to leap from a local legend to a real creature certified by top scientific authorities. However, just as the Society basked in the glory of discovering a new species, a French naturalist named Alexandre Lesueur examined the juvenile specimen in Philadelphia. Lesueur was at the time the world's top reptile expert. His findings were like a bucket of ice water poured over the heads of the Linnaean Society members. He mercilessly pointed out that this so-called dragonback snake juvenile was not a new species at all. It was just a common black snake. Those unique protrusions on its back were not a natural species trait. They were caused solely by severe spinal deformities, a pathological anomaly. This meant the so-called dragonback snake was nothing more than an ordinary black snake with a deformity. This conclusion was devastating. The authoritative certification ultimately became an embarrassment, but it created an even larger and deeper mystery. If the only physical evidence was fake, then how can we explain the hundreds of sworn eyewitness accounts? The Linnaean Society blunder cast a thick shadow over Cassie's authenticity. For more than a century, the massive figure seemed to once again vanish into the depths of history, until 1958, a solitary fisherman had a close encounter in the cold fog of Maine. This sighting is considered one of the most detailed and convincing records in the entire Cassie files. The fisherman's name was Ole Mickelson, aged 81 at the time. On the morning of June 5, 1958, he and his companion, Eimer Helgaard, were working near Elizabeth Point. That day, thick fog covered the sea, with very poor visibility, and everything around was quiet. In the distance, the faint foghorn from Portland Lighthouse echoed periodically over the water. According to Mickelson's later recollections, they first saw a huge shadow slowly approaching through the thick fog. Relying on his years of maritime experience, he initially thought it might be a submarine, but quickly ruled that out because it had no periscope and no engine noise. While they were puzzled, the giant shadow suddenly dived. A massive tail, beyond imagination, like a mackerel's, flipped out of the water and slowly disappeared. A few minutes later, when it resurfaced, both men felt a bone-chilling realization. It stopped just 125 feet, about 38 meters, from the boat. It did not attack nor swim away immediately, but remained quietly, as if curiously observing the small boat. Mickelson clearly saw that the creature's skin was mottled brown, like a flounder. This allowed it to blend almost perfectly with Maine's rocky seabed. He estimated that just the part above water was already over 100 feet, 30 meters, long. But what chilled the old fisherman the most was a tiny detail. Whenever the distant lighthouse horn sounded, the creature's head would slightly, almost imperceptibly, turn toward the sound. It was listening. It was observing. This sighting later attracted the attention of cryptozoologist Lawrence Coleman. Coleman considered Mickelson's testimony extremely valuable because it contained the fisherman's precise observations of marine life. However,
behavioral ecologists offered another possibility. They suggested that large creatures, for example with algae or plant matter attached, could appear as a long snake under thick fog. As for its response to sound, this is almost instinctive for all marine mammals. Thus, Mickelson's sighting became a new point of debate. It provided unprecedented vivid detail, yet these details could always be explained with some ambiguous scientific rationale. Entering the 21st century, a strange phenomenon emerged. In an era where nearly everyone had an HD camera on their phone, yet Cassie still remained elusive. Even with widespread digital recording, clear evidence was scarce. Some recordings surfaced, but many could be explained away as misidentifications. The mystery persisted, and the legend of Cassie grew stronger. Technology had not yet solved it. For a massive and mysterious creature like Cassie, credible sightings actually decreased sharply, almost to nothing. This became the central and most unavoidable dilemma in the Cassie case. Why did a creature repeatedly observed by hundreds in the age of sailing ships vanish in the digital era? The long absence of decisive evidence led many researchers to propose a seemingly irrefutable theory: misidentification. They pointed out that under certain light and distance, groups of dolphins leaping from the water could create visual afterimages that might appear as multiple humps. And when a large whale surfaced, its massive dorsal fin and equally massive tail could easily be mistaken by the inexperienced as the head and tail of a monster. However, this theory was strongly opposed by another group of historians and cryptozoologists. Their rebuttal focused on the Gloucester 1817 witnesses, which included many whalers and fishermen who had spent their lives at sea. Could they really not tell the difference between dolphins and a tens of meters long giant beast? More importantly, no known misidentified object can perfectly explain the unique vertical undulating motion confirmed by hundreds simultaneously. The misidentification theory seems to explain everything, but it falls flat on the most critical details. Thus, researchers like Lauren Coleman proposed a completely opposite, even somewhat pessimistic view. They suggested that the reason we don't find Cassie today may be precisely because it once truly existed. The increasingly busy global shipping propellers created massive underwater noise. Overfishing depleted resources. And industrial-era pollution and climate change dramatically altered the coastal ecosystem. For a potentially extremely rare creature accustomed to the relatively quiet seas of past centuries, such drastic changes could be fatal. They may have been forced to migrate to deeper waters with less human activity, beyond ordinary observation. Or, more regrettably, they may have silently gone extinct in this human-driven upheaval. The reason we can't find it may simply be that we arrived too late. Now let us return to the origin of this mystery. When we piece together all the fragments, what kind of picture do we see? On one hand, scientific explanations seem to offer a key for every bizarre detail. Groups of dolphins mistaken for humps, giant whales mistaken for serpentine monsters. These explanations sound logical and fit our known worldview. But on the other hand, when we try to use these keys to unlock all the locks, we always find a few locks that just won't open. The first and strongest point is cross-century consistency. Why, from 1779's Navy Admiral Preble to hundreds of Gloucester citizens in 1817, and to Ole Mickelson in 1958, over a span of 179 years, are their descriptions of the creature's core features so remarkably similar? A long, snake-like, massive body, a head that frequently rises above water to observe, and that unique, caterpillar-like vertical undulating movement. If this were merely a collective illusion, then this illusion would be truly unprecedented. And yet, across centuries, the reports remain consistent. From sailors to townspeople to modern fishermen, the same key traits appear: elongated, serpent-like body, a head rising above water, and unique vertical undulations. It would be far too persistent and stable to be mere coincidence. The second point of doubt is the credibility of the core witnesses. It is difficult for us to easily dismiss Edward Preble, a decorated officer, known for his rigor and recognized as the father of the U.S. Navy, as lying or hallucinating. Similarly, we cannot easily deny the professional judgment of an experienced old fisherman like Ole Mickelson, who had spent his entire life at sea. Their testimonies were filled with precise details and calm observations, which are fundamentally different from descriptions based purely on fear and imagination. The third point, and the one that challenges modern biology the most, is the repeatedly mentioned vertical undulating movement. Cetaceans propel themselves by moving their tail fins horizontally. Fish and sea snakes move by twisting their bodies left and right. So far, we have not discovered any large marine vertebrate that swims using vertical body undulations. This anomalous detail is either the most successful collective hoax ever, or it is a genuine record of a locomotion mode of an unknown creature. Thus, Cassie's final file is presented before us. It appears as a giant from the deep sea, with half of its body bathed in the sunlight of scientific explanation, clear and rational. The other half of its body remains forever hidden in the shadows, formed by numerous reliable testimonies, unexplained and mysterious. So what is your answer? Is it a collective misidentification lasting 2.5 centuries? Or a real, unknown giant that truly existed? Leave your choice in the comments, and let's see how many are exploring this deep sea, full of unknowns, with you.